Recuperate. Xianxia sat cross-legged on the ground and started to use his primordial violet energy to heal himself. His recovery was absolutely terrifying with the help of the primordial violet energy. In just a short while, his internal injuries had been fully recovered. As for the injuries on the outside, they were insignificant to him. After that, Xianxia started to go on night watch every day, and he fought those wyverns to the death. He didn't use his sword or primordial violet energy, so he was always covered in injuries. However, its effects were very obvious. In the beginning, he was barely able to fight two on his own, and he could only forcefully hold on until dawn. Yet now, he could fight two wyverns. This entire process was an extremely painful one for Xianxia. However, all that mattered was the results. Time trickled by. Just like that, a month passed in Sky Residence City. He went for night watch every single night. Now, he wasn't just fighting two wyverns on his own. He could suppress them. Suppress them. He could suppress two wyverns without using his sword. The changes in his body were huge. However, Xianxia noticed that the strength of everyone in the city was growing. Some used the wyverns to improve their strength, but some didn't. For example, Mad Saber, Ling, and a few more leave the city when the sky turned dark, and they only returned after dawn. Moreover, all of them were injured when they returned. Another 2 weeks passed. At this moment, two wyverns weren't a match for Xianxia at all. Besides that, he'd gained something unexpected, and it was that he'd advanced to the second stage of the enlightened realm. Xianxia was very surprised by it. Amon suddenly appeared before Xianxia and asked, "Is it very surprising?" Xianxia nodded. "It happened naturally," Amon continued. "You weren't just tempering your body as you fought them to the brink of death, you were tempering your mind and soul. Once they arrived at a certain level, it's like pouring sufficient water into a cup, and the water will naturally overflow once too much goes in." "I see." Xianxia smiled. This advancement was quite surprising to him. However, it was a good thing, a very good thing. Suddenly, Amon said, "You don't have to attend to take the night watch tonight." Xianxia was puzzled. "Why?" The corners of her lips curled up. "I'll take you out to have some fun." Xianxia was at a loss for words. Once Amon left, Qin Chuan went over to Xianxia with envy on his face. "I really envy you." Xianxia was puzzled. "Why?" Qin Chuan explained. "She's taking you outside so soon. How can I not feel envy?" "Outside?" Xianxia asked. "To have fun." "Fun?" Qin Chuan chuckled. "You must be dreaming." He glanced at the surroundings and continued. "I'm sure you noticed that some leave at night, right?" Xianxia nodded. Qin Chuan asked, "Know where they go?" Xianxia glanced at Qin Chuan. "Can you stop beating around the bush?" Qin Chuan chuckled and spoke seriously. "Hell Forest. Those fellows go to the border of Hell Forest. Besides cultivating, there's another benefit from that, and it's gathering beast crystals." Xianxia frowned slightly. "Beast crystals?" Qin Chuan nodded. "It's an amazing treasure. Just one of them is comparable to 10 immortal crystals. However, it's too dangerous. So, amongst the 60-plus people here, only a little over a dozen are qualified to go there." He gazed at Xianxia and continued. "But you're able to go there so soon. You're amazing." Hell Forest. Xianxia looked up in the direction of Hell Mountain Range. He could only see its outline from here. "Night." Amon's voice came from afar. "Xianxia, Yujing, Gu Li, and Mo. Come with me." Xianxia and the others looked over and saw that Amon had leaped out of the city. They hurriedly followed after her. Outside the city, Amon glanced at them. "Just the 4 of you will be coming this time. It's the first time that Yujing, Xianxia, and Mo are going to Hell Forest. So I'll give all of you a few tips. Firstly, don't shrink back. The first to shrink back there usually is the first to die. Secondly, know when to stop, and never be greedy. Thirdly, retreat when you should. Don't try to do it by force. As for when you should shrink back and when you shouldn't, use your own discretion." Mo suddenly asked, "Is it very dangerous?" "Dangerous?" Amon laughed coldly. "That place isn't just dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. Once we get there, Even I won't be able to take care of all of you. Your fate will be in your own hands. Amon turned around and vanished into the night sky. Yang Yi and the others exchanged glances and hurried after her. Hell Forest. How huge was Hell Forest? Even Amon didn't know the answer to that. The trees here were exceptionally tall, and every single one of them was over 100 m tall. It could be said that people were tiny like ants once they entered this forest. As soon as he entered the forest, Yang Yi felt a gloomy atmosphere filled it. Even though it was nighttime, it didn't affect their vision. However, they couldn't see very far while amidst the trees. Suddenly, Amon said, "Split up." Yang Yi and the others immediately gazed at her. Yujing puckered his lips and said, "Big sis? About that?" Amon gazed at him. "What? You're afraid?" Yujing hurriedly shook his head and spoke seriously. "How could I, Yujing, be afraid? I just think that it's better to stay together and watch each other's backs. Right?" Amon glanced at them and said, "Remember that you came to the dead dimension to grow even stronger. If I help you deal with all danger, then what's the point of coming here? Gather here at dawn. If you don't come out of the forest by then we'll meet in our next lifetime." Amon vanished into the night once she finished speaking. Yang Yi and the others exchanged glances. In the end, Yujing shrugged. "Good luck." He vanished into the distance. Emoku nodded slightly to Yang Yi, and then he vanished into the night as well. Only Yang Yi remained. Yang Yi glanced at the surroundings, and it was deathly silent. He stood there silently on the spot for a while, and then he started walking towards the distance. There wasn't a single sound coming from the forest. Yang Yi clenched his fists tightly and was vigilant at all times. Arriving here allowed him to understand many things. The first thing he understood was that he could absolutely not underestimate anything in this place, because that would only lead to death. Around 15 minutes later, Yang Yi suddenly stopped. He glanced at the surroundings, and his eyes gradually narrowed. Suddenly, a black shadow shot towards him. It was extremely fast, much faster than the wyverns. If it was before he started training with the wyverns, he would have been absolutely incapable of dodging this black shadow. Yet now, while it was extremely swift, it wasn't enough to exceed his ability to react. When it arrived before him, an ethereal white dragon claw slammed down against it. Bang! The powerful force of the collision blasted the black shadow away, and Yang Yi was pushed backwards repeatedly as well. At this moment, Yang Yi saw it clearly. The black shadow was quite strange. Its face was like the face of a human, but its body was like that of a snake, and it had 4 legs. Yang Yi frowned. "What is that?" Suddenly, the monster leaped up and pounced down at him. Yang Yi was about to attack when it suddenly opened its mouth. In an instant, countless streams of black energy surged out incessantly. Yang Ye's expression changed slightly, and he hurriedly waved his hands. Hiss! 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 Everywhere the black energy passed, even space was corroded. The energy Yang Yi emanated wasn't able to disperse the black energy. Conversely, it completely corroded all Yang Ye's energy. Yang Yi was shocked, and he moved 300 m away. Once he stopped there, he looked down at his hands. Both his hands were being corroded at a visible rate. Yang Yi hurriedly circulated his primordial violet energy, and his hands gradually started to recover. Meanwhile, a black shadow arrived before him. It was the monster. An instant later, a sharp and long black claw stabbed down towards his chest. Bang! Yang Yi was blasted 3 kilometers away. As soon as he stopped himself, the monster appeared before him again. Yang Yi was faster than it this time, and his palm slapped at it first. At the same time, a pitch-black shield of light suddenly appeared before it. As soon as Yang Ye's palm struck the shield, his figure was blasted away. Meanwhile, the black shadow appeared before him again, and then a sharp claw descended towards his head. The claw flickered with a ghastly cold glow. Yang Yi knew that if it struck him, then his head would definitely be clawed open. While his body was extremely strong, it was absolutely incapable of resisting that claw. Yang Yi didn't dare act carelessly. He slowly clenched his fists and intended to use the gold form. However, The monster suddenly stopped, and then Yang Yi watched with bewilderment as it vanished into the night. What's going on? Yang Yi frowned. Suddenly, his expression changed, and he turned around. Hiss! Yang Ye's chest was instantly torn open. A pitch-black hand had torn open Yang Ye's chest. It shot straight through towards Yang Ye's heart. Fortunately, his reaction was very quick, and he immediately dodged over 1 kilometer away. Yang Yi glanced at his chest. It had been torn open completely, and his internal organs were clearly visible. Yang Yi looked up, and the area before him was completely empty. There was nothing there. If it wasn't for the injury on his chest, he would even think that he'd been seeing things. What the hell was that? Yang Yi had an extremely solemn expression on his face. Yang Yi flipped his palm, and Spirit Breaker appeared in his grasp. This time he had to use his sword, because he'd almost died just now. It was too damn dangerous here. Yang Yi healed on the spot and continued forward. He hadn't gone far when that monster with the face of a human and body of a snake appeared in front of him again. Swish! The monster didn't dally and immediately shot at Yang Yi. Yang Yi took a small step back, and then he raised his sword and swung it. Bang! It instantly blasted the monster away. Yang Yi was just about to follow up with another attack, but his expression suddenly changed, and then he turned around and swung his sword. Boom! An explosion resounded, and Yang Yi was blasted over 1 kilometer away. However, there was nothing in front of him. The monster had vanished as well. It was absolutely elusive. Yang Yi glanced at the surroundings. He knew that the thing which attacked him hadn't left, and it was watching him. Yang Yi fell silent for a moment, and then he suddenly took a step forward. After that, he looked to the side before swinging his sword. Hiss! A ray of sword energy shot towards an ancient tree on his right. Bang! The tree instantly exploded apart, and a figure flashed out from within it and shot towards Yang Yi. A vicious glow flashed through Yang Yi's eyes, and he swung Spirit Breaker in the figure's direction with both hands. Hiss! Bang! The surroundings suddenly fell silent. There was a person in front of Yang Yi. The person merely wore a few strips of cloth, and his upper body was bare. All sorts of blood-red markings covered the person's upper body. That wasn't even the most important thing. The most important thing was that this man had grabbed Yang Ye's sword with just his bare hands. He'd forcefully grabbed and stopped Yang Ye's sword. A moment of silence ensued, and then he suddenly slammed his fist at Yang Ye's face. Yang Yi clenched his left fist and slammed it at the man's fist. Boom! They immediately split apart and moved backwards repeatedly. But it didn't take long for them to stop. Yang Yi glanced at Spirit Breaker, and there was a pitch-black claw mark on it. Yang Yi looked up at the man. Meanwhile, the man suddenly vanished on the spot and appeared in front of Yang Yi. At the same time, Yang Yi swung his sword again. Bang! A powerful wave of energy swept out from the man. As soon as Yang Yi's sword came into contact with it, Yang Yi was blasted away. But it only took a while for Yang Yi to transform into a ray of light that shot at the man. At the same time, 10 ethereal swords appeared around the man. The swords instantly surrounded the man, and then countless rays of light enveloped his figure. Roar! Suddenly, a furious roar resounded from amidst the light, and then a wave of powerful energy shattered the sword energy before the man shot out from there. Meanwhile, a ray of light just happened to arrive before the man. Bang! A loud explosion resounded, and they split apart again. Yang Yi glanced at his chest. There was a palm print there which the man had left behind. The man was injured too. There were at least 5 cuts on his body. At this moment, the man was looking at Yang Yi, and there was a slightly solemn expression in his eyes. Their gazes met in the darkness, and then they vanished on the spot. Bang! 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 Explosions resounded incessantly. The mysterious man's strength simply exceeded Yang Yi's imagination. The man's combat instinct and everything else were absolutely formidable. This battle went on for an entire 2 hours. During this period, they kept exchanging blows and suffered injuries. The sky gradually brightened. Suddenly, the mysterious man stopped, glanced at Yang Yi, and then vanished into the distance. Yang Yi frowned slightly. Who was that? At the exit of Hell Forest. As soon as he emerged from the forest, Yang Yi saw Amon and Gu Li. Amon sized up Yang Yi and asked, "Encountered the snake humans?" Snake humans? Yang Yi shook his head and told her about the mysterious man he encountered. Amon's face fell. Yang Yi glanced at her. "Do you know who he is?" She gazed at the forest and replied, "A local." Yang Yi was puzzled. "A local?" Amon explained. "A very long time ago, this place was no different from the outside world. But for some reason, the spirit energy here gradually dried up, the ground collapsed, and volcanoes erupted. As for the living beings in this world, and even the people here mostly vanished. However, some of them survived." She fell silent for a moment before she continued. "Even the snake humans and wyverns are survivors from that time. These locals are very hostile towards us. However, they wish for more of us to come here." Yang Yi was puzzled. "Why?" She answered, "Our arrival brought some life to this world. Our arrival brought spirit energy. They can take spirit energy from us." Yang Yi suddenly asked, "Can't they leave this place?" "It's difficult," Amon explained. "All of us have the support of others. So, when we want to leave, our clans will send experts to get us. While we mainly have to rely on ourselves, the experts from our clans will help us deal with quite a bit of the danger. But these locals can only rely on themselves to leave this place, and that's absolutely difficult." "Why?" Yang Yi didn't really understand. "I didn't encounter any difficulty getting into this place." Amon chuckled. "It's very easy to descend a mountain, but what about ascending it? Even if we'll be instantly killed by the formation around the teleportation formation." Yang Yi asked, "Who placed that formation there?" Amon shook her head. "I'm not very sure. However, there are two explanations. The first is that it was created by the experts of this world, and the second is that it was created by the experts of the outside world." The experts of the outside world. Yang Yi wanted to ask more, but a figure suddenly ran out of the forest. It was Yu Jing. Once he emerged from the forest, he fell weakly to the ground and started gasping for breath. His body was covered in claw marks. Besides that, he was holding 2 fist-sized pearls. Amon glanced at the pearls and said, "You killed 2. Yu Jing gazed at Amon and cracked a smile. "I'm amazing, right?" Amon spoke indifferently. "I killed 5 in my first trip to the forest." Yu Jing felt speechless. Amon looked up at the forest. The last member of their group hadn't come out yet, and it was Moku. Time trickled by. 2 hours later, Amon stood up. "Let's go," Yu Jing asked. "We're not going to wait for him?" Amon shook her head slightly. "He won't be coming back." Everyone's heart sank when they heard this. "Both of you should get used to this." Meanwhile, Amon added, "Death is a very normal thing here." She tapped her right foot against the ground and transformed into a ray of light that vanished into the sky. "She's not wrong." Meanwhile, Gu Li suddenly said, "Maybe you don't really understand why she brought you here and didn't protect you in secret." Yu Jing asked, "Why?" Gu Li explained, "If she went with Moku, then he definitely wouldn't have died. However, can she protect him forever? The answer is no. All of us need to grow, and she can't help us forever." He vanished into the sky once he finished speaking. Yu Jing asked Yang Yi, "What do you think?" Yang Yi shook his head. "She's right. We should rely on ourselves. Just like you. Didn't you survive 2 snake humans?" Yu Jing fell silent for a short while, and then he said, "I feel like I'm slowly changing after I came here." Yang Yi asked, "Why?" Yu Jing gazed at Yang Yi. "I would never speak to a human in the outside world, but I have many human friends in this place. Moreover, I noticed that many of my past thoughts were immature and laughable." He patted Yang Yi on the shoulder and continued, "Nobility doesn't come from status or strength. It's from culture and morals. Just look at Big Sis. While she isn't beautiful, she is respected by everyone." Yang Yi fell silent. Yu Jing continued, "Come on. Let's head back and have a good rest." Both of them vanished on the spot. Sky Residence City. As soon as he arrived at Sky Residence City, Xianxia's expression changed because the tiny vortex had suddenly started to spin rapidly. What's going on? It didn't take long for wild joy to surge through Xianxia. The fifth level. The fifth level of the primordial pagoda was about to open. The fifth level. The primordial pagoda had 9 levels, but he'd only accessed 4 of them until now. Even though he'd only accessed 4 of them, every single level had helped him tremendously. He'd wanted to take a look at the 5th level for a long time. Unfortunately, he wasn't the one who decided if he could have access, and it was the primordial pagoda instead. Now, the primordial pagoda was finally allowing him to enter. Xianxia sat down cross-legged and immersed his consciousness into the pagoda. He didn't alarm anyone and just went to the 5th level. A door. The first thing Xianxia saw was a door. Xianxia didn't hesitate to go over to it. Suddenly, it opened slowly. "Come in." A voice came from within. Xianxia was stunned. 2 breaths of time later, Xianxia walked in. There was only a single person in the room. Xianxia recognized the person. It was the old man in Taoist's robes. The old man sized up Xianxia and smiled. "You've grown very quickly." Xianxia looked the old man in the eyes. Why? He wanted an answer. Why the primordial pagoda chose him, why the old man chose him, the reason the old man chose him. He had many questions that he wanted to be answered. The old man shook his head slightly. "Do you believe in fate?" Xianxia replied. "Do you still believe in fate in your realm of cultivation?" The old man grinned. "What do you think?" Xianxia replied. "I don't know." The old man smiled. "Actually, this pagoda didn't choose you in the beginning. It chose your father." Xianxia frowned. "My father?" The old man nodded slightly. "He possessed extraordinary natural talent and luck. However, he left this pagoda to you in the end." Xianxia was puzzled. "Why?" The old man sized up Xianxia and said, "You wouldn't be you if he didn't do that." Xianxia's frown deepened. "What do you mean?" The old man shook his head slightly. "I don't know much about it. In short, since this pagoda has chosen you, it proves there's fate between us, and there's fate between you and my Tao path. Besides that, you'll naturally be sucked into some things while you have this pagoda in your possession." He looked Xianxia in the eyes and continued, "However, you have a choice. 2 choices. The first, I'll take this pagoda back and sever all ties with you. The second, join my Tao sect and accept my inheritance." Xianxia asked, "What will happen if I give up this pagoda?" The old man smiled. "Nothing much. You'll even be able to avoid a lot of trouble." Xianxia asked, "Then what about if I join your Tao sect?" The old man answered, "Accept my inheritance and techniques, unlock the heart, and establish the heaven Tao. However, it's a very difficult path." Xianxia asked, "Are you still not able to accomplish that? Even with your strength?" The old man grinned. "When did the universe begin? When will it end?" Xianxia shook his head. "I don't know." The old man smiled. "Neither do I." Xianxia fell silent. The old man continued, "People cultivate their strength and seek eternal life, but we cultivate the past, present, future, and the supreme heaven Tao. In the end, we're just slightly stronger than ordinary people. However, we're just a speck in the boundless universe." He walked over to Xianxia at this point. "The Tao is my foundation, my belief, and my path. I hope that even if I'm gone one day, my inheritance will be passed down. So long as my inheritance exists, I will remain eternal. However, the path towards the Grand Tao is filled with competition. Competition for resources, luck, destiny, and even inheritances." Xianxia fell silent. The old man said, "I didn't choose anyone on purpose, and I didn't make the primordial pagoda fall into your hands. I don't have the energy and time to set up all of this either. It isn't even necessary, because if I made plans just for this, those other old fellows would laugh at me. Even though I didn't make this pagoda fall into your possession on purpose, I have to admit that this pagoda and I have caused some karma to coil around you." He smiled and continued, "Accepting my inheritance naturally has to be done willingly. So, if you're unwilling, I can sever the karma between us." What would Yang Yi choose? He didn't hesitate at all. He looked the old man in the eyes and bowed respectfully like a disciple to his master. Master! Sever the karma between them? Yang Yi wasn't an idiot. Was there any benefit from severing the karma between them? None. Not only were there no benefits, he would lose a lot too. Moreover, why would he give up such powerful backing? The old man grinned. I have many disciples, but only 8 have personally received my inheritance. You're the 9th, and the last one. Yang Yi asked, why? It starts with 1 and ends with 9. The old man continued, your Taoist name will be the 9th sword from now on. 9th sword. Yang Yi had quite a strange expression on his face. I actually have a Taoist's name, but 9th sword does sound quite nice. Meanwhile, the old man flicked a ray of cold light into his forehead. A moment later, numerous pieces of information flashed through Yang Yi's mind. A long time passed before Yang Yi opened his eyes slowly. Meanwhile, the old man said, these are some of the sword techniques my Dao sect gathered in the past. Some of them are techniques that some of my Dao sect's sword cultivators use. In short, all of them will be very helpful to you. However, you must remember that you should only read, observe, and learn from them. Do not cultivate them. Yang Yi was puzzled. Why? The old man smiled as he explained. Everyone has their own sword Dao, and so do you. Every single person's sword Dao only belongs to themselves, and it isn't suited to be passed down to someone else. If someone tries to learn it by force, it will only make that person take the same path. So you can read through them and learn from them, but you should take your own path. Understand? Yang Yi bowed respectfully. I understand, but where can I find you? The old man shook his head slightly. You're too weak right now. It'll be very disadvantageous to you if you come to the Dao sect right now, especially while this pagoda is in your possession. It's because your strength isn't sufficient to convince everyone of your right to it. Besides that, if those other old fellows have their gazes on you, then you'll be in even more trouble. He chuckled at this point and added, you must understand that while I can point out a path for you and even open up a path for you, you have to walk through it yourself. Otherwise, it would be meaningless. Understand? He had to walk his own path. Yang Yi nodded. I understand. The old man said, every single race in the large universe has its own beliefs. The Sky race once had its belief in my Dao sect, but they became traitors. So, the sovereign of Sky for that generation died. Yang Yi asked, Master, what are you trying to tell me? The old man explained, my Dao sect doesn't act like the weapon path and only spares those who obey it. But you must remember that anyone who wants to destroy my Dao sect should be killed. Yang Yi fell silent for a moment and said, I understand. The old man nodded slightly. This space you're in is called the Dead Dimension, but it didn't go by this name in the past. It was a base of the weapon path. The remnants of the souls of some old fellows from the weapon path may still remain here. You don't have to worry that they'll take over your body because you have this pagoda, but you can't be careless either. Yang Yi replied, I'll remember that. The old man nodded, and then his body gradually became ethereal. Yang Yi hurriedly asked, How do I leave this place? The old man replied, If you can't leave, then stay here forever. The Dao sect and the fight between paths is much more dangerous than this place. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure vanished. Once the old man vanished, Yang Yi fell silent for a long time. He'd figured out many things that were troubling him, but his heart felt slightly empty. He couldn't put a finger on it. A long time passed before Yang Yi looked up and smiled. Why think so much about all of this? Who knows what'll happen in the future? I should just focus on the path ahead. Once he figured everything out, Yang Yi sat down cross-legged and recalled the sword techniques which the old man had given him. As soon as he started looking through them, he was shocked, because there were over 10,000 of them, and there was a huge variety of them. Moreover, all of them were extremely powerful. In an instant, Yang Yi was lost within these techniques. These techniques were so strong that he blushed with embarrassment at his inferiority. His heaven rend and split second were nothing before them. They weren't even trash before these techniques. They were true techniques. These techniques had opened up a new door for Yang Yi. At this moment, he had the urge to cultivate all these techniques. But he stopped himself in the end. Just as the old man had said, they were the sword Tao of others, and they weren't his own. If he cultivated them, he would just be taking their paths and not his own path. He had to take his own path. Study, observe, learn, and create. That was Yang Ye's objective. So, Yang Yi started studying sword techniques in the primordial pagoda every single day. As he read more and understood more, his mind was filled with more ideas. So, he started to learn from them and create his own technique. However, it was very difficult. Creating something was no simple task. While Yang Yi was bitterly cultivating in the sword Tao, Sky Resident City found itself in trouble. Amon led a group up the city walls, and she slowly clenched her fists when she saw the scene outside the city walls. There were 2 corpses outside the city, and they'd been chopped into pieces. They were members of Sky Resident City. Amon suddenly asked, "Who killed them?" Yu Jing shook his head. "I don't know. They were here early in the morning. They just appeared out of thin air. However, I think it's the Devil Cave." The Devil Cave. Everyone's faces fell. Swish. Suddenly, a sword howl resounded, and then it vanished into the sky. Yu Jing spoke solemnly. "That was Yang Yi." Qin Chuan asked, "Where's he going?" Everyone exchanged glances and remained silent. They gazed at Amon. Amon stood there in silence. Yang Yi left Sky Resident City. His destination was Devil Cave. The incident between them and the Devil Cave had been caused by him, and he really didn't want to drag them down because of him. Since he'd caused the trouble, he intended to resolve it himself. Devil Cave was on a mountain range over 100,000 kilometers away from Sky Resident City, and it was where the Devil Men converged. Yang Yi stopped when he was around 5,000 kilometers away, and then his figure vanished on the spot. He held a sheathed sword in his grasp. It didn't take long for him to sneak into the mountain range, and then he arrived before Devil Cave. Yang Yi noticed numerous corpses outside Devil Cave. There were corpses of humans, wyverns, and some other beasts there. The Devil Men ate all of these. The way Devil Men cultivated was unlike how all of them cultivated. Devil Men cultivated by devouring the corpses of others. They devoured the blood, soul, and flesh to strengthen themselves. Yang Yi would naturally not just attack because that was no different than seeking death. Wait. Yang Yi started to wait. He needed to wait until they came outside, and then kill them one by one. It didn't take long for a devil man to emerge from within. He glanced at the surroundings and shot towards the distance. Yang Yi quickly followed after him. Around 30 kilometers away, the devil man seemed to have noticed something and stopped. Right when he stopped, a sword pierced through his forehead. Hiss! A string of blood sprayed. The devil man opened his mouth slightly and seemed to want to say something, but a sword instantly chopped off his head. Yang Yi glanced at the devil man. The devil man before him was at the 2nd stage of the enlightened realm. If it was a one-on-one battle, he would have to exert quite a bit of effort to kill him, but once he hid himself and took his targets by surprise, he became extremely terrifying. After killing the devil man in an instant, Yang Yi waved his right hand and obliterated the corpse before vanishing on the spot. Yang Yi arrived outside Devil Cave again, and he started waiting again. Just like that, time trickled by. In just a few hours, Yang Yi had killed 6 devil men, and 2 of them were even at the 3rd stage of the enlightened realm, while 1 was even at the 4th stage of the enlightened realm. He'd used the sword domain to kill the devil man at the 4th stage of the enlightened realm. He would have failed if he hadn't used the sword domain to suppress the fellow. 4th stage enlightened realm experts were much stronger than he'd expected. After they lost around 10 devil men, Devil Cave finally started to react. A few dozen devil men suddenly flashed out of Devil Cave, and Black Devil led the group. Black Devil glanced at the surroundings and asked, "Have you found out anything?" A devil man by Black Devil's side shook his head. "There has been no movement from Sky Resident City, but it's definitely them." Black Devil fell silent for a long time before he said, "Let's head back in for now." He led the others in once he finished speaking. Around 4 hours later, a devil man covered beneath a black robe walked outside, and then he vanished into the sky. It was in the direction of Sky Residence City. Xianxia immediately followed after the devil man. Around 15 minutes later, the devil man suddenly stopped, and then a sword appeared before his nape. The sword had just appeared there abruptly. Suddenly, the devil man turned around, and the sword couldn't move an inch forward. It was because a hand had grabbed its tip, and then the devil man pushed back. Bang! Xianxia was pushed over 3 kilometers away. Meanwhile, the black robe around that devil man vanished. Black Devil. It was the leader of Devil Cave, Black Devil. Xianxia glanced at the fingerprint on Spiritbreaker's tip, and then he looked up at Black Devil. The latter waved his right hand, and then 60 devil men suddenly appeared around Xianxia. He'd fallen into an ambush. Even though he'd fallen into an ambush, Xianxia's face was extremely calm. Black Devil sized up Xianxia. I thought you would just hide in Sky Residence City. I didn't expect you to come outside. I'm truly surprised. Of course, it's pleasant surprise. Xianxia chuckled. Don't worry. There are more surprises waiting for you. As soon as he finished speaking, he flipped his palm, and Spiritbreaker was swapped for the Holy Sword. Xianxia glanced at the devil men around him and said, Are all of you going to gang up on me, or will you fight me one-on-one? Gang up on you? Black Devil suddenly started laughing, and he laughed for a while before he shook his head. Gang up on you? Not to mention you, even the leader of Sky Residence City, Amon, isn't worthy of that. As soon as he finished speaking, Black Devil suddenly vanished on the spot, and he was in front of Xianxia when he appeared again. An instant later, a black fist slammed down towards Xianxia's head. It was a very simple punch, and there were no flashy movements. Xianxia swung his sword as well. Bang! As soon as they came into contact, Xianxia was blasted away, and he flew over 10 kilometers away before finally stopping himself. Black Devil was in the same realm of cultivation as Amon. Both of them were in the no-Dao realm, so his cultivation was much higher than Xianxia. It could be said that it was suppression from the gap in their realms of cultivation. Didn't you want to pleasantly surprise me? Where is it? Black Devil walked slowly in Xianxia's direction. I hope it's pleasant and surprising enough. Otherwise, it would be too boring. Xianxia wiped off the blood on the corner of his mouth and smiled. It'll definitely be very pleasantly surprising. As soon as he finished speaking, Xianxia took a step forward, and a wave of mysterious energy instantly appeared here. The Sword Domain. The Sword Domain instantly covered the space in a huge area, and the other devil men were enveloped beneath it as well. That's a domain. Black Devil glanced at the surroundings, and then he gazed at Xianxia. Looks like I underestimated you a little. He was about to swing his fist and destroy Xianxia's sword domain. However, 36 ethereal swords suddenly appeared in the surroundings. Once the swords appeared, the expressions of Black Devil and the others changed. Black Devil's anxious voice resounded, Attack! As soon as he gave the order, all the other devil men attacked. Suddenly, the swords started to spin rapidly. Rays of sword energy crisscrossed and flickered through the surroundings. In an instant, a huge expanse of space was covered in sword energy. The invincible sword formation. After he created it that day, Xianxia had rarely used it, because it was one of his trump cards. So he would never use it unless he had to. Now, he planned to put an end to the enmity between him and Devil Cave. After he joined Sky Residence City hadn't let him down, so he naturally couldn't let them down. However, people from Sky Residence City had died because of him. While he didn't know the people who died, they died because of him. He had to avenge them. Sword energy crisscrossed through the surroundings and hissing resounded incessantly. It was the sound of space being sliced open. Around 10 breaths of time later, the surroundings gradually calmed down. At this moment, around 40 devil men were left standing. Besides that, there were around 20 corpses around Xianxia. These corpses were covered in holes, and it seemed like they'd been shot by 1,000,000 arrows. It was absolutely horrifying. Xianxia held his sword with both hands while his body bent down slightly. He hadn't been injured from utilizing his sword domain. He'd been heavily injured because the devil men had jointly attacked his sword domain. Black Devil was standing a little bit away from Yang Yi, and his body was covered in injuries. But he was still alive. Black Devil's expression was extremely unsightly. 20 devil men. Moreover, there had been 3 at the 3rd stage of the enlightened realm and 1 at the 4th stage of the enlightened realm. However, all of them had been instantly killed by Yang Ye's sword formation. All of them were dead. Just this battle had caused Devil Cave to suffer heavy losses. Black Devil stared at Yang Yi. What an amazing domain and formation! My Devil Cave has paid such a heavy price for underestimating you. But don't worry, I won't let you die that easily. I'll slowly torture you to death. Suddenly, Yang Yi looked up at Black Devil and said, I can activate that sword formation once more. Do you want to try me? The expressions of all the devil men changed. He could activate it again. Even though they'd survived, they still had a lingering fear towards that sword formation. It was horrifying. You can activate it again? Black Devil laughed coldly. That formation far surpasses your current realm of cultivation. It can be said that you've used a force that surpasses your own strength. It'll definitely make you suffer from backlash. If I'm not wrong, you don't even have the strength to hold your sword anymore, right? As soon as he finished speaking, he was about to attack. However, a huge spiked club suddenly smashed through the air. Black Devil's expression changed slightly. He turned around and swung a punch. Bang! Black Devil was pushed over 30 back. Meanwhile, a person appeared in front of Yang Yi. Aman. It was Aman. At the same time, around 50 others appeared around her. Everyone from Sky Residence City was here. Aman ignored Black Devil and gazed at Yang Yi instead. Suddenly, she grabbed his shirt and lifted him up before her. Do you even treat us as brothers? I'm a little disappointed. Qin Chuan spoke abruptly. When Yang Yi left, they hadn't expected that he would come to Devil Cave on his own and assassinate the devil men. And when they found out what had happened here, Aman immediately gathered everyone and rushed over. Sky Residence City shared both joy and suffering. Yang Yi shook his head. I caused this problem, so I'll deal with you once we get back. Aman suddenly interrupted Yang Yi, and then she gazed at Black Devil. Black Devil, since you don't want to let the matter rest, then let's put an end to this today. As soon as she finished speaking, Aman was about to attack. I don't want to let the matter rest? Black Devil spoke ferociously. Aman, it's your people who came to kill my people, but you say that I don't want to let the matter rest. Aman replied angrily. Would he have come here if you didn't kill our people first? I killed your people? Black Devil frowned, and then he looked behind. The others behind him shook their heads slightly. Black Devil looked up at Aman. They exchanged glances, and a solemn expression appeared in their eyes. Everyone retreat immediately. Aman's voice resounded abruptly. Retreat? It's a little too late. Suddenly, a voice resounded from afar, and then a huge black wolf walked over slowly through the sky. The black wolf was huge. Its fur was standing on end like needles, and they flickered with a ghastly cold and dark glow. There was a bald man seated on the black wolf, and he held a black spear in his grasp. The dire wolves. Aman glanced at the surroundings. A group of people on black wolves had suddenly appeared around them, and there were over 100 of them. They'd completely surrounded the experts from Devil Cave and Sky Residence City. At this moment, Black Devil and Aman had figured out everything. It was the dire wolves who'd caused the conflict. As for the reason, it was very simple. The dire wolves wanted Sky Residence City and Devil Cave to kill each other, and then take advantage of the situation. Aman looked up at the bald man. I presume you're the dire wolf? The bald man grinned. Indeed. Aman spoke indifferently. Are you that confident the dire wolves can fight 2 against 1? Black Devil suddenly said. He wouldn't have used such tricks if he was. Dire Wolf chuckled and said, Aman, Black Devil, how many years have we been fighting each other in this damnable place? I think it's time to put an end to it. Otherwise, there are too few resources in this tiny place, and it isn't enough for all of us. Amon said, "Why don't you give it a try?" Black Devil slowly clenched his fists. Even though there was irreconcilable enmity between Devil Cave and Sky Residence City, Black Devil was clearly aware of what was the right choice at this moment. Ha ha! Dire Wolf suddenly started roaring with laughter, and then a terrifying aura swept out from within him. In an instant, everyone sensed an unprecedented wave of pressure. Everyone's expressions changed. A Sea Dao realm expert. At this moment, Amon and Black Devil's expressions were extremely unsightly. They were only at the No Dao realm, but Dire Wolf was actually at the Sea Dao realm. He was a stage higher than them. However, they were very well aware that this tiny little stage represented a qualitative transformation. Dire Wolf glanced at Black Devil and Amon, and then he smiled. "Both of you are geniuses amongst geniuses, and you possess the ability to surmount your realms of cultivation to battle those at realms above you. Especially you, Amon. You once killed a Sea Dao realm expert. Come, try me. Let's see if you can surmount your realms of cultivation against me." Surmount their realms of cultivation to fight him. Everyone here was a genius amongst geniuses, so surmounting their realms of cultivation in battle was absolutely normal for them. However, it depended on the target. After all, Dire Wolf could surmount his realm of cultivation as well when he was at the No Dao realm. Amon and Black Devil exchanged glances, and then they vanished on the spot. A smile curled up on the corners of Dire Wolf's mouth, and then he stretched out his right hand and pressed it down. It was like the sky was collapsing before him. Boom! A wave of powerful energy instantly blasted Amon and Black Devil over 10 kilometers away. As for the others here, they were affected as well, and they were pushed backwards repeatedly. A Sea Dao realm expert. Dire Wolf took a deep breath and said, "The Sea Dao realm represents seeing the quintessence of all things, the heart of the world, and the true appearance of everything. Amon, Black Devil, both of you aren't weak, so I'll give you a chance. Submit to me and avoid death." "Submit?" Amon laughed coldly. "That word doesn't exist in my world." As soon as she finished speaking, she leaped up and arrived amidst the clouds. After that, a huge spiked club appeared in her grasp, and she grabbed it with both hands before slamming it down at Dire Wolf. "Earth shatter!" Amon's voice resounded, and then a stream of powerful energy converged below Dire Wolf's feet. Boom! The ground where he stood collapsed, and a wave of powerful energy swept up and slammed itself at Dire Wolf. Dire Wolf's expression remained calm. He raised his right hand slightly, and then he pressed it down. Boom! As soon as their attacks came into contact, they exploded apart. Dire Wolf was blasted over 300 m away by the force of the collision, and as soon as he stopped himself, the ground where he stood collapsed once more. An instant later, another wave of energy shot up from the ground and swept towards him. Dire Wolf's eyes narrowed slightly as he sat on the Black Wolf, and his eyes flickered with ghastly coldness. After that, he twisted his right hand slightly, leaped up, and then slapped his palm down. Rumble! The ground below collapsed incessantly. A huge abyss appeared before everyone. Sky shatter! Suddenly, Amon's voice resounded from the clouds, and then a huge spiked club shot down like a bolt of lightning in Dire Wolf's direction. As soon as it descended, the space in a huge area started to tremble, and it seemed like space couldn't endure the force within it. It was extremely shocking. For the very first time, Dire Wolf, who was a Sea Dao realm expert now, revealed a solemn expression. He didn't underestimate her attack or act carelessly. He flipped his palm, and a black spear appeared in his grasp. After that, he stomped his right foot against the back of the Black Wolf, and the latter howled furiously into the sky before slapping its paws against the ground and shooting up into the air with Dire Wolf on its back. Break! Dire Wolf stabbed his spear forward. Bang! A deafening explosion resounded through the sky, and the entire sky shook violently while a terrifying wave of energy suddenly erupted. It swept out swiftly and instantly shot over 10 kilometers into the distance. As for the towering mountains in the surroundings, they were instantly destroyed and obliterated. Around 10 breaths of time later, the surroundings calmed down. Amon and Dire Wolf were in the sky. Dire Wolf grinned. as expected of the extraordinary genius from the barbarian race, you truly are extremely formidable. If you were at the Xidao realm, I wouldn't have the slightest confidence in being able to defeat you. Yet now, even both of you together are no match for me. He glanced at Black Devil and continued, Black Devil Aman, I appreciate geniuses. If you're willing to lead your people and join me, then you can avoid death. Besides that, if the three of us join forces, then we can get through Hell Forest and experience the world beyond it. Submit to him? Black Devil fell silent. He was very well aware of what that represented. Meanwhile, Dire Wolf added, My patience is limited. Suddenly, Amon gazed at Yang Yi. From this moment onward, you're the leader of Sky Residence City. Lead everyone back to the city. All of them were stunned. Yang Yi was stunned, and then he asked, What do you mean? Amon looked Yang Yi in the eyes. Didn't you hear me? Take them and return to the city right now. Yang Yi glanced at Dire Wolf, whose gaze had turned icy cold, and then he gazed at Amon. Why me? The others behind Yang Yi gazed at Yang Yi too, and their eyes were filled with curiosity. Yang Yi was new to Sky Residence City, but that wasn't even the main point. The main point was that he wasn't the strongest expert besides Amon. There was Mad Saber, Ling, and many others. In short, logically speaking, Yang Yi should never have a chance to become the leader of Sky Residence City. Amon shook her head slightly. While Ling and Mad Saber are the strongest, they're cold and proud. If they become the leader, they won't just be unable to lead all of you well, they'll spoil your mental states. As for Yang Yi, he can fight and act shamelessly. If he leads Sky Residence City, all of you will at least be able to avoid falling into a disadvantaged position. Of course, if he can't convince all of you of his strength in the future, all of you can choose your own leader later on. Yang Yi felt speechless. Meanwhile, Dire Wolf spoke abruptly. Looks like Sky Residence City is going to vanish from the dead dimension today. Dire Wolf waved his right hand, and the other members of the Dire Wolves surrounded Amon and the others from Sky Residence City. Suddenly, Amon released the spiked club she held, and then she pulled apart the space before her. Hiss! The space in front of her was torn open, and the rift there was growing in size. In an instant, the space around them had been torn open. At this moment, all of them were within the spatial rift. Don't leave the city until you attain the Xidao realm. As soon as she finished speaking, she pressed her palms together. Swoosh! Yang Yi and the others instantly vanished on the spot, and they were extremely far away when they appeared once more. Dire Wolf spoke indifferently. Amon, is sacrificing your life really worth it for some people you met by chance? I met by chance? Amon chuckled. They call me Big Sis and Leader. Dire Wolf replied indifferently. So what? Do you know what leaders are for? Amon looked Dire Wolf in the eyes. They are used to guard the rear. As soon as she finished speaking, her aura started rising madly. Yang Yi stood there while Qin Chuan and the others were behind him. At this moment, Yang Ye's injuries were almost fully healed by the primordial violet energy. Yang Yi glanced at them and said, Come with me. Yang Yi turned around once he finished speaking, and he was facing Amon's direction. Suddenly, one of them said, Big Sis told us to return to the city. Yang Yi took a deep breath and replied, If you want to return, you can go. If you want to come with me, you can come. Meanwhile, one of them reminded, Dire Wolf is at the Xidao realm. Yang Yi suddenly looked at that person and said, What's there to fear? As soon as he finished speaking, a sword appeared below his feet, and then a ray of light shot into the sky. Qin Chuan suddenly laughed viciously. Yang Yi is right. What's there to fear? His figure shot after Yang Yi. Mad Saber and Ling didn't say a word because they'd vanished on the spot. What's there to fear? What's there to fear? Furious shouts resounded through the sky, and then they shot off into the sky. Dire Wolf gazed at Amon, whose aura was rising incessantly. Amon, you're really an admirable woman. However, you're insensible. Since that's the case, you can die. He was about to attack once he finished speaking. Suddenly, everyone looked up at the sky, and there were a few dozen rays of light there. They were led by a ray of light that contained sword energy. Dire Wolf's eyes narrowed slightly from the sight of this. Amon's face fell instead. It didn't take long for everyone to appear here with Xianxia in the lead. Amon looked Xianxia in the eyes. Why? Why? Xianxia chuckled. In my entire life, I never betray those who don't betray me. He gazed at Xianxia and the others. Dire Wolf is at the Xidao realm. Are you afraid? Xianxia suddenly asked. Are you afraid? Xianxia roared with laughter and gazed at Dire Wolf. I've never known fear in my lifetime. Brothers, kill one and you break even, kill two and you've made a profit. Let's fight them. As soon as he finished speaking, Xianxia transformed into a ray of light that shot towards Dire Wolf. A second stage enlightened realm expert against a Xidao realm expert. It didn't matter if he could defeat Dire Wolf or not. What mattered was that he dared to attack Dire Wolf. Just this moment made his status, in the hearts of everyone from Sky Residence City, undergo a change. Dire Wolf's face turned gloomy. You're courting death. He casually slapped his palm forward as he spoke. Just that caused Xianxia to feel a wave of pressure slam down towards him. Xianxia didn't dare act carelessly, and he immediately activated his sword domain. With the sword domain to help him suppress it, Dire Wolf's aura was instantly suppressed. Meanwhile, Xianxia arrived before Dire Wolf. Xianxia drew his sword swiftly and swung it. Heaven Rend. At this moment, his Heaven Rend could be overlapped 100 times. Coupled with the sword domain, it was simply capable of obliterating the world. A solemn and surprised expression appeared in Dire Wolf's eyes when he sensed the energy within Xianxia's sword. It wasn't strength that a second-stage true realm expert should possess. He stopped underestimating Xianxia, and he stabbed his spear forward. It instantly stabbed against the tip of Xianxia's sword. Bang! They split apart upon colliding, and they both moved backwards repeatedly. However, it didn't take long for Dire Wolf to stop himself while Xianxia was pushed over 10 kilometers away. It was absolutely suppression from the gap in their realms of cultivation. If it wasn't for his sword domain, he may not have been able to resist Dire Wolf's attack. After all, he was a Xidao realm expert. He was even more terrifying than Yin Ho. But Xianxia wasn't fighting alone. Once he was blasted backwards, Amon, Ling, and Mad Saber appeared before him while Xianxia and the others appeared around him while facing the members of the Dire Wolves. The atmosphere here became tense. Meanwhile, Amon suddenly gazed at Black Devil, who'd remained silent until now. Black Devil, even if you bow to him, you'll only be remaining alive for the sake of living. You're someone who achieved great things. So are you really willing to submit to another and kneel before him? Black Devil fell silent for a moment, and then he gazed at Dire Wolf. My Devil Cave will deal with whatever the Dire Wolves throw at us. The Devil Cave had joined forces with Sky Residence City. Dire Wolf's face was quite unsightly. The Devil Cave could be considered to have truly allied itself with Sky Residence City. Even if the Dire Wolves could win against their joint forces, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. Moreover, something unexpected might occur at any moment in this damnable place. To fight or not to fight, they entered into a long stalemate, and then Dire Wolf gazed at Xianxia. I'll remember you. As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his right hand and vanished with the other members of the Dire Wolves. He had a reason to hate Xianxia. The Devil Cave hadn't joined forces with Sky Residence City earlier, and he was happy to see Amon's forces leave, because Amon would definitely die as a consequence. Then once only the members of Devil Cave remained, it would be even easier for him to deal with them. But he hadn't expected Xianxia to lead the others back here. That changed everything. Black Devil glanced at Amon's group and said, Everything's going to change now. Amon spoke solemnly. Black Devil, both your Devil Cave and my Sky Residence City are protected by grand formations, but do you really want to spend your life hiding and afraid of offending them? Black Devil spoke solemnly. We shall until we've attained the Xidao realm. Amon replied. We still have to keep our pride and dignity, don't we? Black Devil glanced at her and said, Devil Cave won't come looking for trouble with Sky Residence City until we've attained the Xidao realm. Notify me if you need me. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot with the other devil men. Amon glanced in the direction Black Devil's group had vanished towards, and then she gazed at Yang Yi. "How are you feeling?" Yang Yi shook his head. "I'm fine." Actually, he'd been injured in his battle with Dire Wolf. Dire Wolf was too strong, so if he hadn't relied on the sword domain, he wouldn't have been able to resist even a single attack. Amon sized up Yang Yi and said, "I underestimated you." Many of the others nodded slightly to display their agreement. They didn't have a clear understanding of Yang Yi's strength before this, but they did now. He was an existence who used a formation to kill around 20 devil men. Moreover, he was even an extraordinarily formidable figure who could fight a Sea Dao realm expert while at the second stage of the enlightened realm. Of course, most importantly, Yang Yi was loyal. Actually, most of them agreed with Yang Yi's decision to lead them back here. Sky Residence City was a group, and none of them wanted to be abandoned. Yang Yi chuckled, and then he spoke seriously. "The Dire Wolves will probably not let this matter rest. Do you have any plans?" Amon glanced at the others and replied, "I don't. All we can do is grow stronger, incessantly. Besides that, I want all of you to remember that our enemy, our true enemy, isn't the Dire Wolves." Yang Yi was puzzled. "What do you mean?" The others gazed at her with puzzled expressions on their faces too. Amon pointed at the sky. "Hell Mountain Range is over there, and there are countless powerful demon beasts in there. For some reason, they aren't showing themselves now. But I'm certain they will soon." Yang Yi was puzzled. "Why?" She shook her head. "You'll find out soon. Let's go." All of them returned to Sky Residence City. Once they got back, Yang Yi went back to his spot, sat down cross-legged, and immersed his mind into his body. He went back to studying sword techniques. He hadn't fully researched all the sword techniques he got from the old man in Taoist's robes. He had to fully comprehend them because only then could he use their essence to create his own techniques. Actually, Yang Yi had been almost unable to endure the temptation to learn these techniques, but he forced himself to stop in the end. It was best to cultivate what belonged to him. Just learning from others would force him on the path created by others, but while others could take that path, it may not necessarily be a path that he could take. In the next few days, Sky Residence City gradually became calm. As for the Dire Wolves, it was like they'd vanished into thin air and were never seen again. Even then, Amon still prohibited everyone from leaving the city without permission. The wyverns came every night, but they gradually grew in number. As for Yang Yi, he just sat there on the ground, and no one disturbed him. He was studying. Since he returned to Sky Residence City, Yang Yi just studied the sword techniques every single day. Once he finished studying them, he started comparing them and locating their weaknesses. As soon as it did that, he was horrified, because he gradually noticed the weakness of these techniques. In the beginning, he just noticed the problems in them, but an idea suddenly struck him later on. Mend them. He wanted to use the strong points of other techniques to mend the weaknesses of other sword techniques. Adopt the strong points of others to mend the weaknesses present. Just like that, time trickled by and a month passed. As for in the primordial pagoda, almost a year had passed. In this year, Yang Yi had completely comprehended those sword techniques. Besides that, he'd improved many of them. But this process was quite difficult. However, once he succeeded, their might was improved tremendously. The sword. There was something Yang Yi hadn't noticed, and it was that while he hadn't created his own technique yet, every swing of his sword contained the influence of countless sword techniques. Instinct. After he comprehended the essence of countless sword techniques, Yang Yi always engaged in self-reflection before he drew his sword. If he did it in this way, it would have too many flaws. It forced him to change his attacks. At this moment, Yang Yi finally understood some things. What did his sword Dao lack? It was too monotonous. While he'd successfully simplified his sword Dao and made it even sharper and stronger, it was too monotonous. It was naturally because he hadn't seen many sword techniques. But now that he'd gained these sword techniques from the old man in Taoist robes, Yang Yi had clearly leaped out of the well and saw the boundless starry sky that stretched to infinity. Every single sword technique represented a person's sword Dao. In the primordial pagoda, Xianxia sat cross-legged on a huge rock, and he just sat there for 6 hours. A long time passed before Xianxia opened his eyes, and there was a slightly bitter smile on his lips. Meanwhile, Ho Qing appeared in front of Xianxia. Ho Qing asked, "What is it?" Xianxia shook his head. "I want to create my own sword technique through these techniques, but I noticed that I'm not worthy of creating anything." Ho Qing asked, "What do you mean?" Xianxia stood up. "Every one of those sword techniques were extremely powerful, and every one of them has their own advantage. Simply speaking, I don't have the confidence to create something better than these sword techniques. Isn't that normal?" Ho Qing continued. "Which powerful sword technique wasn't created through painstaking effort? You're too impatient for success." Xianxia fell silent. Meanwhile, Ho Qing continued. "Besides that, why insist on creating a sword technique? Sword techniques are like comprehending the Tao. You suddenly get a stroke of inspiration, and then it'll be created. If you try to create it by force, it may cause it to never be created instead. Forcing it." Xianxia suddenly understood everything when he heard that. He'd really been trying too hard in the last 2 days. Creating sword techniques had always been something that needed inspiration. Once he figured it out, Xianxia wasn't depressed anymore. He continued his studies. Xianxia sat cross-legged on the ground, and he recalled all the sword techniques. Every time he felt that there was something lacking, he would modify the techniques. Just like that, time trickled by again, and another year passed in the primordial pagoda. Xianxia did just 2 things throughout this year. He studied sword techniques and spent time with Su Qingshi and the others. Sky Residence City. Qin Chuan pointed at Xianxia and asked Yu Jing, "How long more until that fellow wakes up?" Yu Jing shrugged. "Who knows? That fellow has been sitting there for more than 2 months. What is he doing?" Qin Chuan replied, "Didn't Big Sis say that he may be comprehending something?" Qin Chuan puckered his lips and continued, "I think he's probably just lazy because he doesn't have to take the night watch if he does this." Yu Jing roared with laughter. Suddenly, Qin Chuan said, "He's awake." Yu Jing gazed at Xianxia, and he saw Xianxia standing up slowly. Meanwhile, some of the others gazed at Xianxia as well. They were curious. Xianxia had been meditating for a very long time. Xianxia suddenly gazed at Qin Chuan and said, "Come, let's fight one-on-one." One-on-one. Everyone here was stunned. Qin Chuan blinked. "Did you go mad while you were cultivating?" Suddenly, Xianxia vanished on the spot. A ray of light flashed. A sword shot towards Qin Chuan's forehead. As soon as Xianxia swung his sword, Aman, Mad Saber, and Ling opened their eyes. There was a trace of solemnness in their eyes. Xianxia's sudden attack caused Qin Chuan's expression to change, but his reaction wasn't slow at all, and he was about to attack. However, his eyes suddenly opened wide, because Xianxia's attack actually made him feel like he didn't know how to counterattack. At this moment, Xianxia's attack made him feel like no matter what he did, he couldn't dodge or destroy it. It went straight for the heart. Xianxia's sword stopped just a few inches away from Qin Chuan's forehead. Qin Chuan looked Xianxia in the eyes. "Why?" Xianxia shook his head slightly. "I don't know either." Qin Chuan felt speechless. "The heart sword." Meanwhile, Ling spoke abruptly. "According to rumor, powerful sword saints can strike straight at the heart. Their swords can destroy mountains, break rivers, destroy the sky, obliterate the earth, and crack the heart. Crack the heart." Xianxia gazed at Ling. "What do you mean?" Ling shook his head slightly. "It's a very profound thing. Even I merely heard of it. Simply speaking, it cracks a person's Tao heart. It cracks a person's Tao heart and makes a person doubt themselves. Formidable sword cultivators can even destroy the Tao heart with a single strike, causing a person to be unable to improve further in their cultivation. However, you're clearly not at that level yet, but it's still amazing. Crack the heart." Xianxia fell into deep thought. That attack hadn't been split second or heaven rend, and he hadn't used the sword domain. It was just a simple attack, but even he'd sensed it. That attack wasn't ordinary at all, but he really didn't know what had happened to it. "I saw many shadows." Suddenly, Mad Saber spoke. Everyone gazed at him and he glanced at Yang Yi. Your attack contained many shadows. If I'm not wrong, they should all be sword techniques. You fused them together. You should have fused many sword techniques together. Yang Yi gazed at Mad Saber. He really is extraordinary. He guessed almost everything with just a glance. That's enough. Meanwhile, Amon suddenly stepped forward and glanced at everyone. I'm going to Southern Qilin Mountain, and I'm taking 2 people with me. Yang Yi, Mad Saber, and Ling. Which 2 of you want to come with me? Qin Chuan asked. We don't have immortal crystals anymore? Amon replied. That's one of the reasons. The second is that it's time for these 3 fellows to see Southern Qilin Mountain for themselves. Mad Saber said. You make the decision. Amon nodded slightly. Mad Saber, you guard Sky Residence City. Yang Yi and Ling will come with me. Remember that you must not rashly leave the city and be ready to activate the Grand Formation at a moment's notice. Notify me if anything happens. Understand? Mad Saber nodded. Be careful. Amon gazed at Yang Yi and Ling. Let's go. She vanished into the sky once she finished speaking. Yang Yi and Ling immediately followed her. High above in the clouds, Amon had her hands behind her back while Yang Yi and Ling followed by her side. Amon spoke abruptly. Southern Qilin Mountain is at the border between the outside world and Hell Mountain Range. The top of that place is occupied by some formidable demon beasts and mysterious experts because there's spirit energy there. Even if it's quite scarce, it's still extremely precious in this place. Yang Yi asked, Is it very dangerous? Amon nodded. Very dangerous. Attain Dao realm experts have been seen there. Just the aura from such experts is sufficient to annihilate us. Amon glanced at Yang Yi and Ling. Sky Residence City has the extraordinary geniuses of the various races, but they are like children standing before adults when they face those terrifying fellows on Southern Qilin Mountain. It isn't because their natural talent is inferior to those fellows. It's because those kids aren't as ruthless. Yang Yi frowned slightly. Ruthless? Amon nodded. They're extremely ruthless. For the sake of fighting for some immortal crystals or spirit energy, those fellows act absolutely ruthlessly. As for those who aren't ruthless enough, it's impossible for them to survive there. She gazed at Yang Yi at this point. Do you know why I wanted to give Sky Residence City to you? Or perhaps I should say, do you know why I thought so highly of you? Yang Yi asked. Why? Ruthlessness. Amon looked Yang Yi in the eyes. Your strength isn't even the most important point. The true reason I think highly of you is because you have an aura of ruthlessness. It can be said that no one in Sky Residence City is more ruthless than you. And it's something that I've only seen present in those monsters on Eastern Qilin Mountain. Yang Yi was at a loss for words. Amon continued. Ling and Mad Saber are strong, but both of them aren't ruthless enough. If they were alone, their strength would be enough to survive in this place without facing any difficulty. However, if they are tasked with leading those fellows, then those fellows would be in danger. Ling fell silent. Obviously, he agreed with Amon. Amon gazed at Yang Yi. The human race has 10 paradises, 3 holy grounds, the Shaman Hunter clan, and the mysterious divine strategy estate. Which one are you from? Yang Yi shook his head. None of them. Amon asked. You're really an independent cultivator? Yang Yi nodded. Sort of. Ling glanced at Yang Yi with surprise. Meanwhile, Amon asked, How did you get here? Yang Yi spoke with a helpless tone in his voice. I was forced to come here. Amon asked, Who forced you? Yang Yi hesitated for a moment and replied, Big sis, I'll just be honest. The people who forced me include the human race, devil race, demon race, sky race, barbarian race, shaman race. In short, every fucking race. Amon and Ling were stunned. A long time passed, and when she noticed that Yang Yi didn't seem like he was lying, she spoke solemnly. What did you do to make all the races want to kill you? Moreover, even the human race wants to kill you. Yang Yi shook his head. It hurts to even think about it. In any case, it fills me with so much despair. Suddenly, Amon patted Yang Yi on the shoulder. It's fine. If we can get out of here, I'll protect you. Yang Yi was stunned speechless. Ling gazed at Amon with quite a strange expression on his face. All the races in the large universe. Yang Yi was quite surprised. He hadn't expected Amon to say that. However, regardless of whether she was telling the truth or not, Yang Yi was quite grateful right now. Meanwhile, Amon suddenly stopped. "We're here!" Yang Yi and Ling looked up, and they could faintly see a mountain in the distance. "That's Southern Qilan Mountain." Amon spoke in a low voice. "It's the only spirit vein in this area." Spirit vein. Yang Yi looked up. Sure enough, he could sense fluctuations of spirit energy now. However, he thought of something, and it was that there were spirit veins in the primordial pagoda. They were the spirit veins he'd gathered in the past. Of course, he didn't dare to let them outside. Wouldn't that be no different than courting death? Spirit veins were the scarcest resource in this place, and he had so many. He could imagine that if he revealed that he possessed that many spirit veins, he would definitely be surrounded by all the experts in this place. So, he couldn't expose their existence at all. "Be careful." Amon's figure gradually descended to the ground. It didn't take long for all of them to arrive on the ground, and then Amon started restraining her aura. Yang Yi and Ling completely concealed their auras as well. The three of them arrived at the foot of Southern Qilan Mountain. But right when they were about to ascend the mountain, a black-clothed man suddenly appeared before them. The man scanned them and cracked a smile. 3 immortal crystals. Suddenly, a spiked club appeared in Amon's grasp, and then it shot through the air. Bang! The black-clothed man was blasted over 1 kilometer away. The black-clothed man glanced at his hands. They'd cracked open, and the sight of this made a ferocious expression appear on his face. Amon looked the black-clothed man in the eyes. "We don't have any immortal crystals, but we have 3 lives. Do you want that?" The black-clothed man glanced coldly at Amon, and then he grunted coldly and turned around with the intent to leave. Suddenly, a voice resounded. "Wait!" The black-clothed man stopped and gazed at Yang Yi. Amon and Ling gazed at Yang Yi too because it was Yang Yi who'd said that. Yang Yi flipped his palm, and a sword appeared in his grasp. He walked towards the man with his sword in hand. 3 immortal crystals. Leave it here and you can go. Amon glanced at Yang Yi and remained silent. The black-clothed man's face was instantly covered with ferocity. "You're trying to rob me? I can't." Yang Yi's face was covered in ferocity as well, and then a ray of light flashed. Bang! The black-clothed man was blasted over 300 m away, but as soon as he stopped himself, Yang Yi had appeared before him again, and then Yang Yi swung his sword once more. Boom! The black-clothed man, who was at the Here Dao realm, was blasted away once more. After Yang Yi swung his sword 10 times, the black-clothed man had been blasted over 3 kilometers away. He couldn't fight back at all. Amon and Ling exchanged glances, and they saw a wisp of shock in each other's eyes. The black-clothed man was even more shocked than they were, because he noticed that he actually felt like there was no way to counterattack Yang Yi's attacks. Sometimes he forced himself to attack, but his attacks were instantly destroyed with ease. Suppression. He was being completely suppressed by Yang Yi. At this moment, Yang Yi's attacks flowed smoothly as he desired. It was truly flowing smoothly like his heart desired. Every single attack was executed freely. After he studied the sword techniques the old man in Taoist robes gave him, he knew that he'd undergone some sort of change. Unfortunately, he didn't know what it was. However, it was a good thing. At this moment, every single time the black-clothed man attacked, a few dozen methods to deal with the attack would appear in his mind, and those methods came from the sword techniques he'd studied. All techniques should come naturally. The sword moves as the heart wills. Strike freely. These words were the summary of a sword technique, the Heart Killer Sword. At this moment, Yang Yi was in a state similar to those words. The black-clothed man was being pushed back repeatedly, and there were a few dozen injuries on his body. In the end, 3 immortal crystals appeared before Yang Yi. At this moment, Yang Yi and the black-clothed man were only 1 kilometer away from each other, and the man's eyes were filled with fear. Xianxia glanced at the immortal crystals, and then he flicked them over to Amon. Amon glanced at them and remained silent. The black-clothed man glanced coldly at Xianxia and vanished into the distance. Amon suddenly asked, "Why?" Obviously, she was asking why Xianxia attacked the black-clothed man. Xianxia walked over to her and replied, "Big sis, with the strength you possess, I'm sure you've noticed that there are others in the surroundings, right?" She nodded slightly. "There are at least 3 no-Dao realm experts amongst them." Xianxia smiled. "Big sis, this is how the world works. The nice are bullied. Even though you tried to act domineeringly, you still seem quite kind in their eyes." "Kind?" Amon asked. "What do you mean?" Xianxia answered, "You're not ruthless enough. I attacked because I wanted to tell them that we aren't afraid of trouble and dare to cause trouble too. If you want to avoid trouble when dealing with people like them, there's only a single way to accomplish that, and it's to be even fiercer, ruthless, and crueler than them." Ling glanced at Xianxia and remained silent. Amon gazed at Xianxia for a long time, and then he said, "Now, I kind of understand why you were able to survive being pursued by all the races." "All those races?" Xianxia shook his head. He'd been surviving through being hunted by people all his life. His experiences allowed him to understand a principle. The weak feared the strong, and the stronger feared the insane. Amon flicked the immortal crystals in front of her. One of them flew over to Ling while another appeared in front of Xianxia. "I won't refuse it, but I won't take it all. Let's take one each, all right?" Xianxia wanted to refuse because he really didn't need it. However, he didn't say anything when he noticed her gaze. That strong woman before him was a stubborn person. "One each." Ling glanced at Xianxia, and he didn't say thank you. As far as he was concerned, it didn't make a difference. And if he really wanted to thank Xianxia, he should just remember this kindness in his heart. While it was only a small thing, it was still a nice thing that was done for him. "Let's go." She glanced at the surroundings and started walking into the mountain. It didn't take long for them to enter the center of the mountain. It was a completely different world here. Amon said, "The top of southern Chilan Mountain isn't a place we can go to, and the bottom isn't a place we can go to either. Because the deepest parts of this mountain and the top of it are the 2 ends of the spirit veins. So those supreme experts own them." "We're going to the center?" Xianxia asked. "The center?" Amon nodded. "Because the spirit energy in this mountain seeps out from above and below. That spirit energy gradually forms immortal crystals. Of course, it takes a very long time to form. Now, those experts will absolutely not let the spirit energy seep out anymore." Xianxia spoke softly. "We're just picking what others missed." Amon nodded slightly. "We are. It's the only thing we can do, and even that is extremely dangerous. Because while some pick up what others miss, others take their lives." Amon sped up once she finished speaking. Xianxia and Ling exchanged glances, and he was about to follow after her when Ling suddenly asked, "Do you know who from the spirit race was trying to kill you?" Xianxia glanced at Ling and shook his head. "I don't know." "Why?" Ling shook his head slightly. "It's nothing." As soon as he finished speaking, he followed swiftly after Amon. Xianxia shrugged on the spot and hurriedly followed after them. The inside of southern Chilan Mountain was huge, and it was simply boundless. Amon withdrew a small disc, and there was a fine black needle swaying lightly on it. Xianxia asked, "What's that?" Amon replied, "A spirit energy detector. It has a very good chance of detecting where there's fluctuations of spirit energy and immortal crystals." "Spirit energy detector?" Xianxia was stunned. He was about to speak when the needle on it started spinning swiftly. Amon was visibly happy from this, and she looked towards the right. "Let's go!" Xianxia and Ling immediately followed after her. Xianxia and Ling followed Amon to a forest, and she stopped once she arrived here. The black needle on the spirit energy detector was pointing at the forest. A long time passed before Amon shook her head. "Let's leave." She turned around and walked away. Obviously, she'd noticed something. Xianxia and Ling didn't say anything, and they just followed after her. Suddenly, a voice came from within the forest. "Since you're here, why don't you come in?" Amon stopped and gazed at Yang Yi and Ling. Looks like we can't leave now. Ling fell silent and didn't say anything. Yang Yi asked, they want to rob us again, right? Amon chuckled. It's a trick that some people here are fond of, and I encountered something similar in the past. However, it can't be avoided. It's part of the risk in this place. Yang Yi suddenly asked, have you robbed before? Amon was stunned and shook her head. Yang Yi cracked a smile. All right, then I'll teach you. Amon was stunned, speechless. Steal. Yang Yi really hadn't done that for many years because nowadays there were truly few things that could make him covet it. Would a rich man rob a beggar? Yet now Yang Yi had no choice but to go back to his old ways, because he felt that he was quite poor. Amon glanced at Yang Yi and said, they aren't ordinary. I know. Yang Yi turned around and gazed at the forest. Meanwhile, the forest split apart, and a group emerged from within. For people, they were led by a middle-aged man, and he held a folding fan. An old man, a woman, and a black-robed figure were by his side. All of them were no doubt realm experts. Based on their respective forces, it was obvious that Yang Ye's side was at a complete disadvantage because only Amon was a Here Dao realm expert. The middle-aged man led the others over to around 300 m away from Yang Ye's group, and a slight smile curled up on his face when he noticed the realms of cultivation that Yang Yi and the others possessed. The middle-aged man was about to speak when Yang Ye's figure suddenly shook, and then he appeared just around 10 m away from the middle-aged man. An instant later, a wave of mysterious energy appeared here. The sword domain. The sword domain instantly enveloped them. At the same time, 36 ethereal swords appeared around them. Die! Yang Yi shouted. Hiss! 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 In an instant, rays of light crisscrossed, and the forest was instantly obliterated. The invincible sword domain. Yang Yi had immediately utilized the invincible sword domain, and it was naturally for the sake of taking them by surprise. The rays of sword energy crisscrossed and sliced through everything incessantly. Ripples surged out from amidst the sword energy, and this continued for almost 15 minutes before the sword energy gradually vanished. At this moment, all four of them were still standing. However, they looked quite miserable. The middle-aged man who led the group had lost his arms, and his entire body was covered in injuries. The others by his side were in a worse state. Especially the old man amongst them, half of his face was gone. Heavily injured. While Yang Ye's sword formation hadn't been able to instantly kill them, it had heavily injured them in an instant. Yang Yi wasn't in a good state as well. The resistance they put up to stay alive had shaken his sword domain, causing him to suffer a certain amount of damage. However, it wasn't life-threatening. But it was clearly impossible for him to use the invincible sword domain again right now. Yang Yi gazed at Amon and Ling. What are you two standing there for? Attack! Amon glanced at him and didn't hesitate to charge forward. Ling followed closely behind her. Yang Yi sat cross-legged on the ground and started to recover with primordial violet energy. Yang Yi didn't pay any attention to Amon and the others. They were heavily injured, so Amon and Ling's strength were sufficient to deal with those fellows. Around half an hour later, the surroundings suddenly fell silent. At this moment, Yang Yi had almost fully recovered. Meanwhile, Amon arrived before Yang Yi. Two of them escaped. Two escaped. Yang Yi nodded slightly. If experts at this level were determined to flee, then it would be really difficult to kill them. Meanwhile, Amon flicked 12 immortal crystals to Yang Yi. We got these from the other two we killed. There were a total of 36 immortal crystals, so these 12 are yours. Don't refuse and take them. As she finished speaking, her voice carried a tone that allowed no refusal. Yang Yi didn't refuse. He took them and asked, Big sis, are you really in need of immortal crystals? Amon replied, Everyone needs them. However, I'm also here to temper myself. This place allows me to feel a sense of danger, and I dare not relax at all. As she spoke, she glanced at the surroundings. Let me take you to a place. She immediately flashed off into the distance once she finished speaking. Yang Yi and Ling quickly followed after her. Around an hour later, Amon suddenly stopped. There was a huge sword in front of them. The sword was around 300 m long and over 100 m wide. They simply seemed tiny like ants before it. There was a huge character inscribed in the center of it. There was a damaged wall behind the huge sword, and it was obvious from that damaged wall that this place was extremely grand in the past. Xianxia gazed at Amon and asked, "What's this place?" Amon spoke in a low voice, "I'm not too sure. I may be a sect of the past. Come, let's go in and have a look." She walked in first. A scene of desolation covered the surroundings. It didn't take long for her to lead them to an old and damaged hall. A huge stone sword floated at the end of it, and it was floating with its tip facing the ground. It seemed like it was suppressing something. There was only a single statue in the hall. It was the statue of a middle-aged man. The man was looking ahead with his hands behind his back, and a sword without a sheath was hanging by his waist. Slaughter intent. For some reason, Xianxia sensed a strand of horrifying slaughter intent. The weapon path. Xianxia felt that the man before him was a member of the weapon path. Suddenly, Snowy's head emerged from beneath his shirt. Amon and Ling immediately looked at Snowy. Ling spoke solemnly, "A sprite lord." Xianxia glanced at Ling. "You recognize her?" Ling glanced at Snowy and nodded slightly. "My spirit race has won." What is she doing with you?" Xianxia smiled. "It's a long story." Ling nodded and didn't say anything. He just shot another glance at Snowy. Xianxia rubbed Snowy's head. "What is it?" Snowy hadn't come out since he arrived here because it was a place without spirit energy. So she truly disliked it. Snowy pointed towards the right. Xianxia was delighted when he saw this because Snowy had definitely sensed something. He immediately asked, "What's over there?" Snowy bit on her claw and thought for a moment, and then she started waving it swiftly. This time, even Xianxia couldn't understand her. Xianxia rubbed her head and smiled. "What the heck are you saying?" Snowy shrugged and revealed a helpless expression. Xianxia hesitated for a moment, and then he gazed at Amon and Ling. "Let's head over and have a look." They glanced at Snowy and nodded. Snowy led them out of the hall and towards the right. This journey continued for an hour before they finally stopped. There was a small mountain in front of them, and there was nothing special about it. Only the mountain wall was extremely smooth like a mirror. Snowy pointed at the mountain wall. Xianxia asked, "There's something in there?" Snowy blinked and shrugged. It meant that she didn't know. Xianxia was at a loss for words. Meanwhile, Amon suddenly walked over to the wall and patted it lightly with her right hand. After that, she gazed at Xianxia. "There's nothing in there." Snowy flew over to the wall and patted it lightly with her paw. Nothing happened. After that, she sniffed it slightly, gazed at Xianxia, and then pointed at the wall. Xianxia hurriedly asked, "There's something there?" Snowy shook her head. Xianxia's face darkened. "Is she playing a trick on me?" Meanwhile, Snowy patted the wall lightly and gazed at Xianxia. This time, Xianxia understood what she meant. The wall wasn't ordinary. Xianxia walked over to it, glanced at it, and then slowly placed his right palm on it. In an instant, Xianxia's expression changed. Blood red. Xianxia's eyes had instantly turned blood red, and the slaughter intent within him swept out madly and surged into the wall. Amon and Ling's expressions changed at the sight of this, and they moved back slightly. Xianxia's slaughter intent was ceaselessly surging into the mountain wall. Xianxia slowly closed his eyes, and then he appeared in a gray and hazy world. While he looked around at the surroundings, a middle-aged man appeared before him. The middle-aged man was the same man whom Xianxia had seen in the hall. The middle-aged man looked Xianxia in the eyes. "The weapon is a path of cunning and slaughter. My weapon path is an unyielding and courageous path. Only those who submit before us may survive. Are you willing to inherit my weapon path's inheritance?" "The weapon path's inheritance?" Xianxia was stunned and shook his head. "Senior, I've inherited the Dao path." He was a member of the Dao path, so he naturally couldn't inherit the weapon path. "So what?" The middle-aged man continued. "You're courageous and unyielding, and you possess the aura of slaughter. You even possess the heart of slaughter. You're perfect for my weapon path. Now, I'll give you the Weapon Dao compilation and the 6 slaughters of the Weapon Dao. He didn't even give Yang Yi time to refuse before information suddenly appeared in Yang Ye's mind. The 6 slaughters of the Weapon Dao: slaughter man, slaughter the earth, slaughter the sky, slaughter all things, slaughter the heart, slaughter oneself. A long time passed before Yang Yi opened his eyes, and he gazed at the middle-aged man. Senior, I'm from the Dao path. I don't care. The middle-aged man waved his hand. Since you were able to get in here and meet me, it means we were destined to meet. It's the destiny that your Dao path believes in. Remember that the weapon path has 6 lines. Our line was completely annihilated because of a stupid mistake my senior brother made. We must take revenge for that. I can't do it, so I'll leave it to you. Yang Yi was stunned speechless. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man added, even though the weapon progenitor was at wrong too, it isn't completely his fault. Moreover, you can't defeat him anyway. So, don't try to take revenge from him. Your target is that bastard who calls himself the Weapon Immortal. Just for the sake of seizing a position of superiority in the weapon path, he used the time the weapon progenitor wasn't there to plot against our line. You just have to kill him, Yang Yi asked in a low voice. How strong is that fellow? The middle-aged man replied. Above the sage realm. Yang Yi hurriedly said. I can't defeat him. The middle-aged man spoke indifferently. That's your problem. Fuck you. Yang Yi flared up. I don't want your fucking inheritance. Go look for someone else. Above the sage realm? What did that represent? Yang Yi didn't know. In any case, he knew that person could kill him with absolute ease. He didn't want this inheritance anymore. He had enough trouble. You don't want it? The middle-aged man grunted coldly. It's too late. Yang Ye's face darkened. Inheritances require mutual consent. It's pointless to force it on someone. The middle-aged man fell silent for a moment and replied, You're only aware of the danger, but do you know about the benefits? Benefits? Yang Yi hesitated for a moment and asked, What benefits? The middle-aged man replied, Our line focuses on slaughter, and you're born to cultivate in my line of the weapon path. The benefits. Yang Yi interrupted the middle-aged man. Senior, you should just tell me about the benefits. The corners of the middle-aged man's mouth twitched, and then he spoke solemnly. The benefit is that you'll obtain the 12 swords of slaughter. Yang Yi hurriedly asked, The 12 swords of slaughter? What rank are they at? The middle-aged man replied, The sage rank. You're currently at the enlightened realm. The Dao realm is above the enlightened realm, and the Zen realm is above the Dao realm. As for the sage realm, it's above the Zen realm. These swords are at the sage rank. They're amazing, right? The sage rank. Yang Yi hesitated for a moment and withdrew the sovereign of man's sword. What rank is this at? The Xian. The middle-aged man's expression changed at the sight of it. He fell silent for a long time and gazed at Yang Yi. I never expected it to be in your hands. Yang Yi asked again. What rank is it? The middle-aged man replied. It doesn't have one. Yang Yi was puzzled. What do you mean? The middle-aged man spoke solemnly. It was jointly forged by many supreme experts, including the weapon progenitor of my weapon path. Its weapon spirit was even... He paused for a moment at this point and continued. It's called the Sword Supreme. Yang Yi was quite puzzled. The Sword Supreme? The middle-aged man nodded slightly. The superior of all swords. Yang Yi chuckled. Senior, see? The best sword is in my possession, so those 12 swords of yours are... Can you use it? The middle-aged man glanced at Yang Yi. If its sword spirit awakens, then you'll definitely be abandoned. Yang Yi was at a loss for words. The middle-aged man added, Kid, the Weapon Dao compilation and 6 slaughters I gave you are extremely useful at your current level of strength. The compilation can improve your slaughter intent and purify your heart of slaughter. If you cultivate the 6 slaughters, then with the strength you currently possess and the fact that you're a sword cultivator, you'll definitely be able to bring out its full strength. Let me explain it like this. If you succeed at cultivating the 2nd slaughter, Earth, then even those kids out there won't be a match for you. Xianxia thought for a moment and replied, "Are there any more benefits?" "Yes," the middle-aged man continued, "but I just don't know what they are for now." Xianxia felt speechless. "Kid, I don't have much time." Meanwhile, the middle-aged man flicked a seal over to Xianxia, and there was a small character on it. The middle-aged man said, "It's the weapon seal of our slaughter line. Now you'll be the seal master of our slaughter line." The middle-aged man's figure gradually turned ethereal once he finished speaking. Xianxia hurriedly asked, "The swords, where are they?" The middle-aged man replied, "In the weapon cemetery outside Hell Mountain Range. Once you get there, you'll be able to subdue them with the weapon seal." Xianxia asked, "Senior, are you alive or dead?" The middle-aged man chuckled, and his smile was quite terrifying. He didn't answer Xianxia and just vanished. Xianxia felt like he'd been dragged into a trap. The weapon path. He was a successor of the Tao path, and now he was part of the weapon path too. Moreover, he was in the line that had been annihilated. It was a horrible trap. Moreover, he hadn't jumped into it on his own. He'd been dragged in by force. Forget it. I'll just deal with things one step at a time. Xianxia started to recall the 6 slaughters of the weapon Tao. The 6 slaughters of the weapon Tao could be split into manslaughter, earth slaughter, sky slaughter, slaughter all things, heart slaughter, self-slaughter. Slaughter. Its core was slaughter. There was one more thing. It didn't have any set moves, and it was what made it special. Since it had no moves, one would naturally have a killer move if one's mental state was at the right level. It was completely similar to his current sword Tao. His current sword Tao stressed upon attacking as the heart willed it. The 6 slaughters stressed upon the same thing. It was extremely suitable for him. Manslaughter. Xianxia started to study manslaughter first. Manslaughter, kill others with your body. There are a myriad of ways to kill. This move contains techniques to kill people. When cultivated to the extreme, just a thought can kill. Xianxia's face gradually turned solemn as he read through it. It was formidable. Extremely formidable. That was Xianxia's evaluation of the 6 slaughters. Xianxia had killed many, and he had many techniques to kill. Even his intent to kill was extremely strong and pure. However, he was only barely able to cultivate the manslaughter portion of the technique. It wasn't that his intent to kill wasn't pure enough, it was because his skill at killing wasn't sufficient. The techniques of killing contained within manslaughter were too numerous. Moreover, after he started looking through it, Xianxia couldn't help but sigh with emotion. So people can even be killed like that. Some methods of killing were like art. But all he did in the past was take his enemies' heads, stab them in the forehead. His methods of killing were too monotonous. The sword Tao, the slaughter Tao. Xianxia noticed that they didn't conflict at all. Time trickled by. In the world outside, Ling suddenly asked Amon. He? Amon glanced at Xianxia and said, "It's his fortune." Meanwhile, Snowy flew over to Xianxia's shoulder, sized up Xianxia, and then gazed at Amon and Ling before waving her claws. She was asking them when Xianxia would wake up. But how could Ling and Amon understand her? They exchanged glances and shook their heads. Snowy blinked, and then she laid down on Xianxia's shoulder. While she didn't like the outside world here, Xianxia was in danger right now, so she had to protect him. She hadn't forgotten how she'd obliterated an extraordinary expert with one punch that day. As far as she was concerned, besides the pagoda, Xianxia was the strongest existence in this world, and then she was ranked 3rd. Suddenly, Amon looked off into the distance. "Someone's coming!" Ling turned around. 3 people suddenly appeared not too far away from them, and it was the woman in a green dress who led the ground. 2 young men were by her side. They stopped upon noticing Amon and Ling. Amon and Ling were visibly vigilant. Meanwhile, the woman's gaze descended onto Xianxia's shoulder, and a wisp of surprise flashed through her eyes when she saw Snowy. "A sprite lord!" Snowy glanced at the woman, and then patted Xianxia's shoulder lightly. She was telling him to wake up because someone wanted to steal her. Snowy had seen similar gazes in the past. All the people who wanted to take her had such gazes. Meanwhile, the woman led the young men towards Ling and Amon. They were less than 10 m away from each other. The woman gazed at Amon, and then she pointed at Snowy. 30 immortal crystals. Will you see it? 30 immortal crystals. Snowy blinked, and then fury appeared on her face. Moreover, she'd even clenched her fists. She was furious. She was actually only worth 30 immortal crystals. It was an insult. Snowy had never felt so insulted. Amon hadn't even spoken when Snowy waved her claw, and then 30 immortal crystals appeared before her. Everyone here was stunned by this scene. 30 immortal crystals may be nothing in the outside world, but they were extremely precious in this place. None of them had expected Snowy to just produce 30 immortal crystals. Meanwhile, Snowy flipped her palm, and the immortal crystals fell to the ground. After that, Snowy patted her paws together and acted like those immortal crystals were trash. Everyone felt speechless when they witnessed this. Amon shook her head slightly because while Snowy had made a show of strength, they were in deep trouble. She couldn't really wrap her head around why even this little fellow had a temper like that. However, only someone rich could toss 30 immortal crystals on the ground like they were trash. The woman's gaze grew even brighter when she saw Snowy act with such intelligence. She sized up Snowy and said, "How rare! You've grown to such a level. I didn't expect to get such a pleasant surprise on this trip to the dead dimension." She gazed at Amon and continued, "That sprite lord is mine. Is that so?" Amon glanced indifferently at the woman. "Why don't you give it a try?" The woman grinned, and then one of the young men by her side vanished on the spot. He was in front of Amon when he appeared again. Bang! An explosion resounded, and then Amon was blasted over 1 kilometer away, but it only took a moment for her to vanish on the spot. Bang! The man was instantly blasted over 3 kilometers away. Moreover, he spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood. "You have some skill." The woman grinned and was about to attack. However, Snowy suddenly appeared in front of Amon. She pointed at herself, and then pointed at the woman in a green dress. This time Amon understood Snowy. Snowy was telling Amon that she would deal with them. Amon hesitated for a moment and asked, "Can you?" Snowy nodded while confidence covered her face. Amon nodded slightly. "Then go ahead." Snowy turned to look at the woman, and then she clenched her right fist and slammed it forward. Her fist shot forward. Nothing happened. Snowy blinked. She glanced at her fist and swung it again. Nothing happened again. Snowy refused to believe it and swung a few more punches in succession. But nothing happened. Snowy glanced at the woman, glanced at her fist, and then turned around to gaze at Amon before waving her claws lightly. She was telling Amon to do it instead. Amon was stunned speechless.